Hi everybody. Well, we've talked about what a complex number is, and now we're going to do some operations with complex numbers. And this video is pretty simple. It's about adding and subtracting complex numbers, which you'll find is not terribly difficult. Remember, I told you that in terms of when we do math, in many cases we can treat the imaginary unit I as if it were a variable, like it were an x. Now we know it's not a variable. It actually stands for a very specific amount, the square root of -1. But in terms of dealing with it mathematically, it's often easy just to consider it just like a variable and treat it just like a variable. So if we have, for example, let me just give you an example here. How about 2 plus 4i plus, let's say -6 plus 5i. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do that addition. We have two complex numbers here. We have 2 plus 4i, where my a is 2 and my b is 4. I have a real number 2 combined with an imaginary number 4i, and a second complex number where a is -6. That's our real portion, and our b is 5, so 5i is our imaginary portion, and we're going to be adding them together. Now, what I'm telling you is that you can treat this as you would treat this problem. And I don't think I need to tell you how to do that. You should all know how to do that already. That's an Algebra 1 problem right there. So don't worry about it. If it's an I, it's an I. You would treat it the same way as if it were an X or a Y or an A or any other variable. It's not really a variable, but we can treat it that way. So what are we going to do? We're just going to get rid of the parentheses here because we don't need them. We've got plus minus 6, so we're just going to write -6. That'll make life easier. And then plus 5i. And all we're going to do is combine like terms. Yep, it's that simple. 2 minus 6 gives me -4. And then combining our imaginary terms, 4i plus 5i gives me 9i. So my final answer here, written in standard form, is -4 plus 9i. And notice that the real number, the a, is first, the imaginary number is second, 9i. 9i minus 4, written the other way, is mathematically equivalent to -4 plus 9i, but it's not in standard form. And your answers need to be in standard form when you deal with complex numbers. Let's do one that's a little more complicated, and I think you'll see why pretty quickly. 8 plus 8i, there's my first complex number, minus -1 plus 5i. Now the difference between these two problems is that this time I'm subtracting it. Okay? And we have an additional issue when we subtract, and that is we have a negative outside of parentheses, which means that negative sign must be distributed, must be applied to both terms in that second parentheses. Okay? So when we get rid of our parentheses, we have to distribute that negative. We have minus 1, which is plus 1, and minus 5i. When I combine my like terms, 8 plus 1 is 9. 8i minus 5i is 3i. Okay? Not too bad, is it? Now, again, notice I'm writing my answer as 9 plus 3i, not 3i plus 9. So just to summarize here a little bit, we treat our I as if we would a variable when we add and subtract, and your only thing you need to watch out for is when you're subtracting a complex number, make sure that you distribute that negative sign throughout that complex number that you're subtracting. Thanks.